This session is on Fibonacci series. Fibonacci series is a series of numbers which follows a pattern. The first two numbers in the Fibonacci series is 0 and 1. The third number is formed by adding the 0 and 1, which is going to be 1. The fourth number will be adding the previous two numbers, which is going to be adding 1 and 1, which is going to result in 2. Similarly, we will be forming the next set of numbers like 3 and 5 and 8 and 13 by adding the previous two numbers. Now let's see how do we calculate this manually. So if you see the steps, I want to break down into steps so that will be forming our algorithm to implement this in a Java program. So we always take the last two numbers. So we name it as second last number and the last number. The second last number is in this case is going to be 0 and the last number is going to be 1. Now as you know, the Fibonacci series is going to start with 0 and 1. So there is no calculations involved in it. We are just going to output these two numbers because always the first two numbers in the Fibonacci series is going to be 0 and 1. Now to compute the third number, we are just going to add the second last number with the last number. So this will be our output, which is the added output, which is going to be 1. Now after we get the added output, we are going to output this as well. So which is the third number. Now in order to get the fourth number, what we need to do is we need to make our last number as the second last number and our recent output as the last number. So that is what we are going to do here. So in this case, what's going to happen is the last number is 1, which is going to be made as the second last number, and then it is going to make it as 1, and the recent output is 1, which is going to be going to the last number, and that will also become 1. And now we are going to repeat the step of adding it together. Now it is going to be 2 and 2 will be outputted. This step is going to be repeated like changing the last number to second last number and then changing the output to last number to form the next number. So we form the next number 3, we are printing it. And to form the next number, we do the same steps, making the 1 as 2 and 2 as 3. Now we get the 5. Now again, the second last number will be coming to the last number, which is 3. And then last number will become 5. And you get the next, when you add these two, 8 will be there, 8 will be printed. So like this, we can form the Fibonacci series of any number of elements that you want. Actually, in this series, I'm printing like how many numbers? It's 7, 0, 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and 13. So it is going to be totally 6 plus 2, 8 numbers basically. Whereas in this, 2 numbers are already generated, and the rest of the 6 numbers are generated by the repeated sequence. So let's do a program for doing the same thing. So we start with n1 is equal to 0, which is our second last number, and this is the last number. We print those two things because we need this as part of the series. And then the next step we are doing is we are adding these two numbers. N3 is equal to n1 plus n2, and we are outputting this number as well. Now the last two step is going to be changing the numbers, right? So what we are doing is we are changing the second last number, which is n1, to have the last number value, which is n2. So n1 is equal to n2. We are taking the last number and putting into second last number, and then we are making the output that we generated recently into the last number, which is in n3. So n3's value will be stored in n2, right? So now what we need to do, we need to again perform the addition now. N3 is equal to n1 plus n2, which will make the last two number addition, and then we are going to output that number. So if you see that these 4 steps, whatever I have had it here, is going to get repeated number of times. So how many number of times you are going to repeat it, that number of times the Fibonacci series is going to be produced actually. So let's say I wanted to produce the series of 7 numbers. So my count will be 7. Now I put a for loop here where I is starting from 2 to 7. Why I start with 2 is because I already print the two numbers, which is 0 and 1, which is not part of this loop. So I start with 2 and I end with 7. I mean less than 7, which is going to be starting with 2. It's going to execute this 4 statements 5 times actually. So we are going to get the output of 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. So let's do the same thing in Eclipse. I'm going to use the same utility program to develop this Fibonacci series as well. Let me minimize these functions so that you can easily see this. It's part of the util class. So public static. So it doesn't need to return anything. I wanted to just print the Fibonacci series, so I'm just putting a void here. So Fibonacci of, so how many numbers you want to print, whether it is 7 or 9 or how many numbers in the series you want to print is the count, what we are getting as the input from the user. So now as you know, the first two numbers is always going to be 0 and 1, so we are going to make it integer n1 is equal to, first number is 0, second number is equal to 1. So second last number and the last number we already had it, so we are going to print those two numbers. I'm going to print n1 I'm going to print n1 and n2. Okay. Now after that, I'm going to do the actual steps that is going to get repeated. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is n1, the second last number will become the last number, and then the last number will become the recent added number. For that, we need to first create the third number, which is the added number, right? So n3 is equal to n1 plus n2, and then you output that number. Sorry, output that number, which is going to be n3. So here 0 plus 1, 1 is calculated, and we are printing the number. Then you are going to change these numbers as we discussed, and this part of the program is going to get repeated multiple times. How many times? Till the count is achieved actually. And I don't want to start the count with 0, so I'm going to starting with 2 because we already printed two numbers here. So I'm starting with 2, and then I'm making I less than count, and then I plus plus. So put it in a loop. So this will be repeated, that many number of times. Okay, so we have written this module or the function basically to print the Fibonacci series of how many numbers you want in the series. You are going to give us the input, and it is not going to return anything to you, so it is called as void here. So let's write a demo program, test program to test this whether the Fibonacci series is working or not actually. So I'm going to create a new class here and make it as a Fibonacci test. Have the main method. This main method is just going to call the Fibonacci series. So for this, it is going to use Fibonacci series method is present in util class, and once you put util dot, it is going to give you the name of the methods that is available for you, and just say util dot Fibonacci of, if you want 7, you just say 7 here. It's going to print till 8 actually. So it's going to, if you count this 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers is getting printed.